All right, everyone, welcome to the Game Changers Show. I'm your host, Mike McKay. And this week on the show, we have Benjamin Huang. Benjamin, welcome to the show.
I appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, for the people that don't know you, we're talking about a little bit offline how you haven't always been an entrepreneur. So, you want to talk about a little bit about where you started and what kind of got you into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I was professionally trained as an engineer. I initially wanted, like, really love the subject of physics, and then I dived deep into physics, and got into a major of applied physics. And then later on, I realized I don't really want to dig myself into the book for too long, so I got out and started doing the engineering stuff. So I ended up get engineering degree, and later on I start to explore interesting projects, researches, and all that. And a couple of years later, I found myself to be dealing with the last pandemic, which is Ebola virus.
Mm,
And I was designing these chips, working with a bunch of super smart people, days and night. And until there's a point that I realized that, hey, we're working so hard, but all of us, every single person in the lab are dirt poor. And then I realized that I was on the wrong side of the table.
mm,
So I was um, deciding to make a change and really figure out what I didn't know. And
mm,
then I got into this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that got me into a theme that I realized, oh my god, like this is the thing that every single person in the world should read.
mm.
And then I read that books over and over and over until later of that years I bought my first real estate, and that deal set me financially free.
That one deal.
One deal.
Really? Tell me more about that.
Sure. So back to that time, I was actually in Bozeman, Montana, and I bought
Uh,
a deal. Um, Initially, it was actually a condo type. It was like 4 bedroom and 3.5 bath.
uh,
And this, although it's a condo, it's more like a townhouse. It's like a row houses.
mhm,
And I basically realized that they have a massive living room, have a massive, kitchen and all that. So I essentially put into additional rooms to
mhm,
basically rent it out to the students, because I was actually working in a university there,
mhm.
and it was in the walking distance. Extremely shortage on housing, so each room I was able to rent like somewhere between 650 to like 1,500. Um, so yeah, I mean that deal's become a 7 bedroom house,
Mhm.
and the moment that I fill up the house, it basically bring in more income than what I would make from my W-2 income.
Wow.
Yeah. The challenging part is I didn't know that I was financially free.
Sure. Yeah.
I
Okay.
was still working very hard, but I started to realize that um, I started to question the decision that my supervisor made.
Mm.
For example, it's like when I'm working there, and there are some decision that was made, and I was like, it doesn't make sense. It's not productive. It's not efficient and all that. When you are being an employee, you typically do whatever your supervisor said.
Mhm.
You rarely question it. But when I bought that property, and that property start to produce more than like 30 or 40% of my, like basically more, 30 to 40% more than what I make on my W-2, I was
Mhm.
like, to just have a principally change on my behavior. And I didn't know why. I was like, okay, now I need to make sure that everything makes sense, so it's
Mm.
worth my time.
Mhm.
And but my mindset was not there. My mindset was not like, oh, okay, so I'm financially free, I don't really need to work, all I need to do is just keep buying properties. So yeah, that's basically how I get started. And that's basically my first switch from engineer to my first real estate deals.
So when did you make the jump from being engineer to full-time entrepreneur?
Um, it's actually relatively recent, but I would say probably the last couple of years, I realized that I don't really need to work for a W 2 because a W 2 is not going to provide me what I wanted to make or what
Mhm,
I wanted to produce for the world. And so there was a time that I was not taking any W 2, but my latest job was a exception because my latest job I literally exit March this year,
mhm,
and I only took on that job because that was meaningful to me. I was
mm,
not doing it for the money. I was fortunate enough to serve the White House at that time. So I was like, oh great, I get to make bigger impact. So I work on that job. But after I exit, I basically now a full time entrepreneur, investor, business owner, and business acquisitions guy.
yeah. What was that job that you were doing for the White House that had a lot of meaning to you?
So that was the only job or only position that would allow me to make impact on how federal policy um, would roll out, right? And originally, I was born in Taiwan,
Mhm,
and people who know Taiwan's, you know that we're kind of the country continuously being pointed with 300 missile any second, right? From one of our not too friendly neighbors, and essentially, like, you know, my parents still there, they're living in fears every day. Well, kind of. um, and when I get to get involved with some of the decision making or policy
mm,
making, then that's truly was impactful to me.
yeah, gotcha. And then we were talking a little bit offline how most of the real estate acquisitions you've done and even the business acquisitions have been done creatively. I want to talk more about that.
Yeah, so I would say probably 5 6 years ago, I start to realize that okay, buying real estate is great. However, there's only a certain point you get to use your own money,
Mm,
because every single person's money does run out at some point. Like even if you're a high income earner and whatnot, you will max out one day. And if you're buying property with your say conventional loans, you will max out at 10 property or 10
mm,
10 existing loan, right?
mhm,
So once you hit that, there's no way for you to scale. And therefore I have been thinking about some creative things to do, but I just never able to figure out that has a complete blueprint on what I should do and all that until
mhm,
I discover Pace Morby. He being a creative finance world leader. I joined Sub2 community and get to do a lot of deals inside the community. And then I realized that, oh wow, with creative strategy, it first of all it's way better than how you do things conventionally,
mm,
and it has no cap for you to do more deals.
mm.
So once I learned that, I'm not going back. I'm now only doing creative deals.
What would you say is the most interesting, and I'll leave interesting up to your perspective, but what would you say is the most interesting creative deal that you've done?
Um, I'll give an example, like the deal that we closed literally last Friday.
Mhm,
Um, that was a deal that we bought it basically with no money, and we even make like 240,000 cash at closing. Like, can you
okay.
imagine that you buy a house and you have 240,000 cash come back to you? That's insane. And that is not even a huge commercial property. It's a single family house in Texas that we bought with seller finance, notes being
Mhm.
put on the second position, and we basically place the DSCR loans in the first position,
Okay.
aka Morby method. For people who are in sub two, you would know what that is. Some people call it stack method, but essentially we put the seller finance note, which covered the entirety of the purchase price. We put it on second position. The first position essentially have all the free and clear equity that we use DSCR to basically pull out the equity.
Mhm.
Now, pulling that equity out, of course, you still need to pay the down payment and whatnot. But the whole fund that we pull out, deducted by the down payment, is the
Mhm.
net cash that we get to pull out, which is around like quarter million.
So, for the people who don't know, like, that method, could you maybe talk a little bit more, like, how it works, but also, like, why did it work in this, like, specific deal?
Sure. So if I start from the fundamental, if you're going out to buy any asset, you can work out a deal with the seller, basically upgrading seller to be the bank to
Mhm.
finance you. That's called seller finance, right?
Mhm.
Basically, the seller agree for you to pay him or pay her back with the installment for the equity that he owns.
Mhm.
That's seller finance, right? Now, the other thing is called basically um, position, right? So if you are looking at the asset, at one asset, you would hear people say, "Oh, there's a first position loan, second position loan." Essentially, that position is indicating who will have the priorities to get the money if this asset being sold.
Mhm.
First position essentially the person who hold the note that they will get their money back first. And the second
Mhm.
position essentially is the second person if there were any remaining equity.
Mhm.
So that's being said, if you're in the later positions, it's higher risk than the earlier position.
Mhm.
Now, if you combine both of the thing together, like seller finance and these position, I essentially will go work out a deal with a seller
Mhm.
and say, "Hey, I am going to buy your property with seller finance,"
Mhm.
and say this property worth like 750,
Mhm.
and for us to do the seller finance, we agreed we're going to pay you higher for you to allow us to take a note. So
Mhm.
essentially, we bought the property, say 800,000.
Mhm.
So we're buying with 800,000, but we're having 800,000 as a seller finance note,
Mhm.
which we're going to make payment over time in the next 40 years, 0% interest.
Mhm.
That's the exact deal that we got. 40 years, 0%.
Yeah.
By the way, you don't get that from any banks out there. So just so 40 years, 0% interest, we get to pay over time. Now, when we have the conversation with the seller has been saying, "Oh, you guys are in a great deal. This is a property they will definitely appreciate. This the moment the Federal Reserve start cutting rates, this value of the house is going through the roof." So essentially, what we did was we followed that conversation and say, "Awesome. What do you think the business or the property would worth after the rate cut?" And in this scenario, the owner, she was like, "Oh, it's easy a million." I said, "Fantastic. Look like we're in such a great deal. If that's the case, would you allow us to put your note on the second position so we can take out a loans from the first position to fix it up, to furnish the house and whatnot? And you
Mhm.
don't really need to worry about your risk being the second position because the house is going to worth so much."
Mhm.
And the seller was said yes, because the seller couldn't say no at that point,
Mhm.
because the seller was like, "Hey, I think this house is definitely going to skyrocket in terms of value,"
Mhm.
right? So essentially, we cut that deal. We free up the first position. We went out to get a loan called DSCR loan, and that
Mhm.
DSCR loan essentially allow us to put down 20% and get 80% of the appraised value out.
Hmm.
And then the second position will be the seller finance. So basically, right now that property is in negative equity.
And then it's in negative equity, but are you going to be making cash flow on that property
We are
even with
going to we are going to cash flow about $100, which is
$100?
literally nothing. Yes,
Okay.
but for us to do this deal, it's not about the cash flow; it's about the cash out. We get to pour the cash out and deploy on somewhere else that makes sense
Mm, okay. At 0% interest.
at 0% interest,
Yeah. Gotcha.
and we got 40 years to pay it off.
And there's no balloon or anything like that, so you
Well,
can
there.
pay it off.
Oh, this is another interesting part. Thank you for asking the question. There is actually a balloon.
Okay.
She was like, "Hey, I'm going to give you a 40 years note, but I'm going to have it balloon in 5 years." I said, "Oh
Okay.
my God, 5 years is such a short time." So what we did instead was this: Hey, if you think the property is going to value at 1 million, after rate cut and whatnot, why don't we do this? We will let you balloon in 5 years only when the house is appraised at 1 million.
Mm,
And if it doesn't appraise at 1 million, we get to kick 1 year down the road
until it does
until
every
it
year.
does every year until
Because
end of
that way
3 years.
you can pull out your money and pay her off because you can just
And that
refinance.
is that exactly. So that is me making sure that the house eventually will have the equity to pay her back, and at the same time pay back the loan, or we can
Gotcha.
refi somehow.
Gotcha. So what was the I always find these interesting. Like what was the seller's situation where like taking payments over time made sense to them?
So there are actually a couple of reasons, but the most common reason is the pain. The other one is gain, right? Like what is the
Mhm.
seller struggling and what is the seller's making or gaining, right?
Mhm.
In the pain scenario is typically where we find most of our creative deals came from.
Mhm.
The reason the seller in pain could be the seller is trying to move to other places, trying to move to other countries or other state, or trying to retire and sick and tired of dealing with such a big house,
Mhm.
or they simply cannot afford the payments, or many reasons, right?
Mhm.
There's specific pain. Now on the gain side, the seller could be paying no taxes, and basically, if the seller accept the payments, they will not be able to hit a certain income bracket. Therefore, they don't need to pay the taxes until later. So that's kind of the gain that the seller will be able to get.
What was the specific scenario that you just shared? Like what was the seller's reason for doing it in this scenario?
So in this scenario, I think the seller was trying to move out of state,
Mhm.
and I think for the gain part, she has so much confidence that the property would value, at a million or more. So she doesn't really want to undersell the property because she's
Mm.
happened to be a realtor as well. So she was like, "Hey, this is $1 million property. I'm not going to sell it for whatever the market is willing to pay." So we kind of
Mm.
play that ego game against her.
Got it. So she thought it's worth more, and obviously no one who was buying traditional finance or cash wanted to pay a million
Yes.
or whatever she thought it was worth. Yeah.
Yes, and she doesn't want to go back to her husband and say, "Hey, I told you it was worth 1 million, but I only sold for 600."
Sure. Yeah. Gotcha. So you were saying before that, you've done a lot of creative deals in real estate, but you've also done some business acquisitions creatively. You want to
Yes,
talk a
I
little
have.
bit more about that? Yeah.
Yeah, so about 4 or 5 years ago, I was actually doing large multifamily. I acquire like apartment complexes,
Hmm.
and then during that time, the interest rate started to go up higher,
Hmm.
right? And when that happened, we basically look around the asset, and like there is very little asset worth the debt.
Hmm. Hmm.
And when that happened, I my option are two. One is, okay, do I sit on a sideline and just go to the beach and just wait, or do I do something else?
Mhm.
And then I decided to do something else. I decided to just go and actually, um, you know, look into business acquisition.
Mm.
And business acquisition is the thing that create a lot of fun to me because it's way more way more factor than real estate. In real estate, like to the end of the day, there's only a few things that you need to be careful with, or you need to be mindful of what you have in control. Of course, you
Mhm.
can be creative, but there's only a certain room that you can do that. But
Mhm.
in businesses, there are so many things that you can do, and therefore, I found it very interested. I basically pivot into business acquisitions when multifamily apartment complexes are not worth buying.
Mhm.
Um, so the past 3 4 years, I've been spending my time in business acquisition. Um, so as we speak now, we own 5 businesses,
Mhm.
and we have focused on laundromat specifically this year and maybe even next year.
Mhm.
We acquire business in all kind of creative ways. Most businesses we acquire are either zero money down
Mhm.
or it's basically free.
Hmm. Tell more about the free businesses. I'm curious.
Sure. So, for example, the earlier this year,
Mhm.
May, we acquired a laundromat. That laundromat was losing money every month, 8,500 every month. They
Okay.
lose so much, and that is a laundromat that nobody want to touch, right? Because who
Mm.
would buy a business that lose money, right? But when we look at that business, first of all, we noticed a seller was actually in a very stressful position, right? Because
Mhm.
if your business is losing money so much, how long can you, hold on to it and all that? So basically, the seller was drowning in debt,
Mhm.
and most buyer come in and realize that, oh, the business is losing money, so they are in no interest to buy that business.
Mhm.
But when we come in, we realize that first, our group is mission to help the business owner retire,
Mhm.
and seeing a old lady who were running that business for almost half a century and in stress, that is something that we don't want to see. Therefore, we actually dig deeper, and then we realize that yes, the business is being fully loaded with debt. Most of them are bad debt.
Mhm.
And my definition of good debt and bad debt are the following: if you can go out to a marketplace and get a debt
Mhm.
that has an interest rate higher than what you have, then this debt is considered good debt. But if the debt has an interest rate that is higher than what you will get on the market at the moment, then that's considered as bad debt.
Mhm.
So most of the business there were actually bad debt,
Hmm.
and in fact, they're like um, about 200,000 of debt were actually in 35 to 40% um, interest that they're making daily payment. It's insane.
Yeah.
So with that said, when we are looking at this business, the only way that you can help the business is to address the debt.
Mhm.
And the business actually bringing very strong revenue and very strong income. Um, just the debt is the problem. Therefore,
Mhm.
we actually work with a group of investor. We come in and actually pay off the debt,
Mhm.
pay off the bad debt, and keep the good debt. We
Mhm.
basically take over the payments. We call it subject to. We
Mhm.
take over the payment obligations toward the good debt, and we address the bad debt. At
Huh.
acquisitions, at acquisitions, that business start to print $12,000 every month,
Pro
positive cash flow,
profit. Okay.
profit, net, net, net.
Wow. Because they were paying 35 to 40% on their debt, it was just crushing. It was actually a good business besides their debt structure was terrible.
Yes, the financial
Interesting.
management was terrible.
Huh. Super
So
interesting.
so when that happened, we own a laundromat that prints 12,000 every month,
Yeah.
and every single dollar that we throw in there, we immediately gain at least 35 to 40% interest or return, which is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. How did you find that deal?
So it actually came from one of our suppliers who one of my laundromat work with. And
Okay.
he was basically just coming to me and say, Benjamin, you were telling me that if there's a business that has a owner trying to retire and they cannot sell the business, come to you. And I said, yes, let me take a look. And then I found out it's actually a in a pretty bad situation, but with our creativity, we'll get to turn it around. And now that laundromat is doing so well.
Wow. And then when you take over a business like that, because obviously the owner was owning it for 50 years, and it sounds like they worked in the business, right? And I'm guessing that your goal is to work on the business, not in the
Yeah.
business. So
Yeah.
what did you need to put in place so that it would be more of a passive investment? Maybe not fully, but more of a passive investment than obviously the
Yeah.
previous owner had.
Yeah. So the previous owner, she kind of already have the team in place. However, um, she had to do something that she could not outsource, and we are able to delegate those functions to the manager. Right. So we're kind of fortunate in that situation that there's already a manager already trained in place
Mhm,
for years and all that. So in this scenario, yes, we're lucky, but there are other scenario that when we acquire a business, especially when you're buying a business that are mainly owner operator, then you
mhm,
got to make sure that whatever it's netting, the business is netting can at least afford one manager or one operator.
mhm. So how many laundromats do you guys own at this point?
At this point, we only have two, but we
You have
own other businesses as well. And as we speak, we're acquiring another two laundromat.
Okay. What was the first business that you acquired?
It was a landscaping company that we
Okay.
acquired, and I made so many mistakes on that business.
Let's talk about that so other people don't have to make them.
Sure. And by the way, I do now like every week I allocate 1 hours to share with people on what I have learned, what mistake I made, so people don't need to make the same mistake. That is actually very important because if there was something like that, I would be able to avoid making all these mistakes.
Mhm,
But coming back to the first business, it was a landscaping company that I structured the deals with zero money down.
mhm,
It would be so cool, right? Hey, I bought a business, zero money down, no money out of pocket. But the biggest mistake that I made was I have them all loaded with debt.
mm,
And that is the single mistake that most real estate investors who are switching to business acquisitions would make. Because in real estate, you can count out you can count on that income,
mhm,
right? But in businesses, there's a lot more fluctuations, and
mm,
you cannot really count on that. For example, that business, when I was acquiring that, it was actually making netting 500,000 every year,
okay.
and everything in my mind was like, okay, all I need to do is bought that business, sit back. In 2 years, I'll be a millionaire, right? I
Sure.
mean, if you see a property that have 500,000 NOI and you can acquire it with no money down,
Mhm.
wouldn't you think that okay, I just need to buy this business and just sit back and just have be a millionaire in 2 years?
Yeah.
You would, right? But in business, it doesn't work like that because the first week after we acquire the business, there's payroll.
Mhm,
Every week there's like $8,000, $10,000 payroll,
mhm.
and that's not something that you can structure zero money down. That's not something that you can say, hey, can I pay you overtime?
Yeah,
Doesn't
sure.
work like that. They will be like, I'll see you in my next life, right? Things there's like guests, like you like trucks maintenance, like systems, like there's all kind of supplies and maintenance that you need to pay for, and these are not deferrable. These are not
Mhm,
something that you can finance. right? So um, after the first 3 months, I realized that initially I was budgeting about half a million net. In fact, I may be just breaking even.
Mm.
Can you believe that? Like a
Because of the
business,
debt you put on, because you put too much debt on the property, the business, or because the other guy was
yeah,
making half a million,
half a
right?
million, yeah. So
Yeah.
basically, I acquired a business that will incur about 10,000 a month of
Mhm.
debt payment, and seller finance loans, which is like 1,000. That's it. You may think
Oh,
you
so
may
you
think
got it.
this is just fine, right? This is
Sure.
like 11,000 a month. And over a year, you're talking about 121,000 debt
Yeah.
payment only. The business was making half a million. You would think, oh, we're very safe. We're still going to make like 300 at least. But no, no,
Mm.
it doesn't work like that. So there are a lot of variable in businesses that you do not want to just structure everything with debt, because when you structure everything in debt, you have no downside protection,
Mhm.
especially in landscapings. If your guy doesn't go out to work, there's no revenue.
Mhm.
And the few months or few years after COVID or after 2020, most people doesn't want to work.
Mm.
And so we have been in a situation that we're short staffed significantly. And even though we have a lot of jobs that need done, that can make us a lot of money, but we are taking 30 to 40% hit on year one.
Huh. Were you able to turn that business around?
Yes, until
Okay.
recently. Yeah. So, and I will not disclose too much because that is in the process. But we essentially um, attempt to acquire the other much bigger landscaping company,
Mhm.
and then were able to basically cut a partnership agreement with them.
Mm.
So essentially, we're offloading all the operational, like operation to them, and we focus on marketing, on brandings, on the thing that they're not doing.
Yeah.
And just with that, we just upgrade our company from a 1 million to $2 million companies to a $15 million lawn care company.
Yeah. So if you were gonna do that deal again, what would you do differently that it would have allowed it to work out much sooner?
I would not buy that business.
Fair enough.
I mean, there are so many businesses out there. Like, why do you have to buy this one, right?
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
what
mhm.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say that for audience who are listening in, if you are wondering why I always ask people to pass on the deal, is because when there are things that you have concern, that typically means that that is a challenge that you may not even want to deal with. And
Mm.
nowadays there are hundreds of business or thousands of businesses newly up for sale every single day.
Mm.
So just go buy another business.
Yeah. So what do you look for today when you're acquiring a business? Like, it has to have this, otherwise I'm just, or it can't have this, or I'm not interested.
So I would say you have to understand yourself first. Put all
Mm.
the deals flow and whatever, put all these things aside. Focus on what you are good at, what
Mm.
unique advantage that you have,
Mm.
and what networks do you have that other people don't, what skill set you have that other people don't, what is the number one superpower you have when a business need you can just pull through and just knock it out of the park.
Mm.
Identify that first, because everybody is a key. This key will be a good fit to one business but will not be a good fit for other businesses.
Mhm.
So for example, if you're so good on, say, marketing, you better go buy a business that is lack of marketing, that
Mm.
need help with marketing.
Mhm.
If you just go out and buy a marketing agency that are running super inefficiently, then they don't really need your skill set. Like, why buy that business? You cannot value add. Like, after all, nobody buy the business to just hold down to it. You have to
Mm,
buy the business to grow the business, so you exit with a higher valuation. It's not like rental property. People don't just buy businesses and just hold down to it.
mhm. So what is your unique key that you bring that you look to fill in a business?
So I'm actually have this massive game plan that I wanted to change how people use laundry services in the next decade.
Hmm.
So we all are in real estate. We all know this, that US is going to become a renter nation.
Hmm.
And when we become a renter nation, the rich is going to be richer, the poor is going to be poor.
Hmm.
When that happens, the people who are getting richer, they will not even wanted to do their own laundry. They will likely pay someone to do it for them, right? And the people who are on the other side, they're going to be so busy working on the two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10 jobs that they have to do to survive.
Hmm.
They won't even have time to do their own laundry.
Hmm.
In either case, they would need someone to help them with their laundry services.
Hmm.
Yes, on one end it could be more like a dry cleans, more like a higher end stuff. The other could be just like typical wash and fold or wash without fold, you know.
Hmm.
But I see that this is how the US market or even the entire world is going to trend to. And when
Hmm.
that happens, I want to be positioning my company
Hmm.
in a role that's ready to accept that massive flow.
Mm.
Do we care if our business are profitable? Definitely. But I am not buying a business just to get that $100, $200, $500 check every month, because
Hmm.
that will not make me rich. That will not make me poor.
Hmm.
The ultimate goal is if I can make a trajectory change for the next generation, then that is making huge impact to the world.
Hmm.
And the fact that I'm sharing with you about my massive game plan, that is my superpower. I'm a visionary, and
Mm.
I strategize to put up what will happen in the next 10 to 15 years, even 20 years,
Hmm.
and work with the solid member to actually execute. So that's
Yeah,
what I bring to the table.
gotcha. So how are you finding like the people who are the other pieces so that they can make your vision a reality?
You have just need to know enough people. Like, to the end of the days, you have to know enough people who share the same interests and willing to fight for the same mission, and keep their mouth shut and just keep working on it.
Yeah.
I have been through many people
Hmm.
who initially was like, oh, this is so cool, I want to be a part of it, and then quickly they realize, oh, it's so much work, I can't do that, and then they exit.
Mm. What's been like your most successful way personally to find like to meet all these people or to find the right people, I guess I should say.
I would say put yourself in the room, and
Mm.
the more the more dollar amount that you need to pay to get in the room, the higher likelihood that you will get a higher quality people that you get to connect with. So
Mm.
think about this: if you're going to a room that everybody need to pay $3 to get into, versus a room that everybody need to pay like $300,000 to get into, don't you
Mm.
don't you expect a different group of people who will be in the
Hmm.
room? And if you are able to talk about your vision in the room, and people actually come to you and say, hey, I love what you're thinking, let's work together, that to me is the goal. That to me is
Mm.
like, you know, they're aligned, you know, they're capable, you know, they're playing big game, therefore it's great to have a some sort of partnership going on. So actually, now, like, now that I see the money that we pay toward these kind of conferences, meetup, mastermind, and all that is the price we pay to keep most people out of the room.
Mm. What are some of the, or maybe one or two of like the best rooms that you put yourself in regularly?
So I am now in owners club within Sub Two,
Mm.
with Pace Morby. People in owners club, they have been very aggressive on their mission and also are doing big thing.
Mhm.
People there are not willing to accept small things or failure and whatnot.
Mm.
And you get this sense that you are working with a group of people who are trying to do big things. Therefore, you will never make small thing your goal.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's one of the room I was able to get myself in, which I am super grateful of.
Yeah. What's another one of the rooms that you've had a big impact just from being there?
I would say the recent years, it basically just within this community because there's already so much action that I could not even finish.
Mhm.
And of course, previously I was also in like Tony Robbins,
Mhm.
like seminar and whatnot. But these were like mindset thing. I think to
Mhm.
the end of the day, um, your mindset is being determined by who you hang out with, because who you
Mhm.
hang out with is who you become.
Yeah. I think that's a great piece of advice. Are there a lot of people doing business acquisitions in Pace Morby's group?
It's getting more and more.
Mm.
It's certainly growing, and yeah, and this is why I keep telling people in the community that, hey, like most of us will be entering into business acquisition world as a real estate investor.
Mm.
Um, so let's try to avoid the mistake that people make.
Mm.
You know, and yeah, because there are a lot of assumption or a lot of lesson we have learned from real estate are not, you know, applicable to business acquisition world.
Mm.
But of course, there's a lot that's still the same.
Yeah. When you acquire these laundromats or maybe other businesses, for example, are you also acquiring the real estate along with the business?
Both. Well, I mean, it's either way.
Okay.
I sometimes I don't only buy the business. Sometimes I buy both. It really depends on how the business structure look like. For
Mhm.
example, if I'm buying a laundromat and this is a business that's heavily dependent on real estate, and
Mhm.
you're actually buying the real estate, you're not actually buying the business, because you can run your washer and dryer anywhere, but what you really want is actually run your washer and dryer in this specific location.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
if the real estate is up for sale, then I would buy it. But if I were to buy a landscaping company, does it really matter that I station here or there? It doesn't really matter.
Mm. Yeah. Are most of the businesses that you buy like local to you around the Boston area, or it doesn't matter?
We recently graduated ourselves from being localized to nationwide. So we are currently under agreements with two businesses that are out of state.
Okay. What have you learned along the way that might be a little bit different if you're acquiring a business that's out of state versus somewhere that's local?
So when you're running out of states, you need to depends more on system and the team,
Mm.
and there will be less or even impossible for you to say, oh, there's a fire I need to put out, so let me rush into the store, or let me rush to there and deal with it, right?
Mhm.
So it's a different ball game, I would say. Like when you are getting to that level, you have to be super familiar with how this type of business work and how that market works and what's your teams, what's your strategy. Say if the stuff hit the fan, how are you going to deal with it?
Mm,
What's your backup plan B, plan C, or even local team that can support and all that.
yeah, gotcha. So, I know you're focused on laundromats now, but you've obviously acquired other businesses over the last few years. What's an example of another business that you acquired?
So I once also acquired a cleaning company with
Okay.
no money. And the strategy is how we call console for equity. So essentially, we went into the business and say, hey, if I can help you 10x your business within 3 months, would you give me 80% of your business?
Mm,
And you know, we we essentially have a contract already secure before we were even looking for a clean company to acquire,
mm,
right? So I was actually in have this exclusive relationship with a apartment complex that they're looking for a cleaning company that they can contract to, and that's a massive apartment complex. That's like
sure.
200 doors. And I was like, great, I don't have a cleaning company yet. And then I went out to talk to 10 cleaning company and say, hey, if I can 10x your company overnight, would you let me own 80% of it?
Mm,
And most cleaning company or most mom and pop business will tell you, hell no, why would I do that? But that's when you say, would you rather owning a 50,000 business, or you want to own a $50 million business?
yeah.
And yes, on the 50,000, you can own 100% of it. 50 millions, you may own like 20% of it. Which one do you want?
Yeah.
It's very clear. So basically, that's how we acquired that clean company. But the mistake I make on that one was I did not have a good enough alignment with the seller
Mm,
or basically the business owner. And so when I actually bring that contract to her, she actually freaked out. She was like, Benjamin, I work for 20 years and I have only 25 clients that I've served. And overnight, you're bringing me 300 doors.
which
That's
is
what
what you
happened.
wanted, but maybe not.
Yes. Yeah. But when you have that conversation with the business owner, who doesn't want to 10x their company? That thing's fantastic,
Yeah.
right? So what I have learned from it is when I go in and say, "Hey, I want to help you 10x it," I need to come up with a package, not just help the sale, but also scale the operations and systemize the
Mm,
operations and the team and all that. Right? That was actually my second business I acquired, and that's why I made all these mistakes.
yeah. So, what ended up happening?
So basically, we own a business briefly,
Mm,
and then I voluntarily exit because we have a missions or vision misalignment, right?
hmm.
It would not make sense for you to own a business, say even 80%, and the your partner just doesn't want to scale,
Sure. Yeah.
right? So I basically just exit and take the lesson and learn.
Yeah. Well, what's another interesting lesson that you've learned over these years of buying businesses?
Um, I think. Oh, there's so many. Let me think. What is the most interesting? Yeah, I mean, believe it or not, I made too many mistakes than probably what I should. But what like one thing that I've learned was the fact that I've made so many mistakes within such a short period of time. It
Mhm.
actually forced me to grow so quickly.
Mm,
It's super painful, super stressful, but within a very short amount of time, you know a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's the other thing. If anybody who are listening in want to acquire a business, just go and take action. I'm not asking you to just go there and put your house, put your names, your credits, everything's as a collateral to just get a huge loan or whatever. Don't do that. Just go and start looking at business to acquire. Start having the conversation with the seller to learn. Start figuring out what you're good at. Start making mistake to and learn from the mistake. Right. The
Yeah.
like I think my biggest gain was the fact that we made so much mistake, my team and myself has getting into this culture that when we face a challenge, we basically just try to figure out what's the lesson learned and then move on.
Mm.
Right? We don't get
Yeah.
stuck to it. And one thing that my operator keep telling me, which I hate, was that it is what it is. I hate that so much. Because every time when he told me that, I was like, why can't we be creative and solve this problem?
Yeah.
And then he will tell you that you being creative solving this problem is going to cost us way more and take us way longer. So don't do
Mm.
that.
Mm.
So which was true, right? And
Mm.
I appreciate him, nowadays. And so sometimes we kind of joke about it and like, yeah, like if we do this right, if we do this rounds and moving forward in the next 2 years or 3 years, it's going to become it is what it is situation, and then
Yeah.
there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
So we kind of get to the next level already, I guess. But yeah, that's what we have been learning.
Gotcha. Lisa had a question, which is, what's one of the things or practices that helped you like grow your mindset in the beginning and keep growing that as you've grown?
I think the best way to scale your mindset is to hang out with the people who are having a much bigger mindset than yours.
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
when I was dealing with my first business issue, like the landscaping I was telling you about, I was
Hmm.
like, oh my god, where do I get the money for the payroll next week? Because when you go and actually do the job, it actually takes you 30 days or 60 days, sometimes even 90 days for people to pay you.
Mm.
But you have to make your payroll like next week.
Hmm.
So I was on a cash crunch, for a long, long, long time. And I still remember that there was this time that I was struggling and trying to figure out. And then I was talking to a investor who were like 300 million net worth and whatnot. And the problem that he was talking about was like tens of millions size of problem.
Mm.
And I was like, oh my god, I'm worrying about this freaking $12,000 problem, and he's dealing with this tens of millions of problem. And so that immediately bring me to a level that, okay, if I were to worry about $10 million problem,
Mm.
then the 12,000 problem still there, but it's
Mm.
going to become way smaller, and I become way more capable to come up with solution that will solve this problem once and for all.
Yeah.
So when in so practically when I was owning that landscaping, there's multiple times I was thinking maybe I should file bankruptcy
Mm.
because I was using SBA debt and there's the personal guarantee and whatnot. That was a terrible mistake that first time business owner you do not want to make. But what happened was, if I keep looking at the financial of that business, I may be drowning myself in the desperation, in the frustration, in the stress, and all that. But I was in this conversation with someone talking about $10 million problems, of course, in exchange of $100 million opportunities.
Mm.
And that changed my mindset drastically. And I was just telling myself, I am just one acquisition away from solving this problem.
Ah.
And I am so good at acquisition. If I can buy this zero money down, I can buy the other one zero money down. And the other one that I will not be making the same mistake, then that one can cover this one. And if this $12,000 monthly payroll will all of a sudden become a $5 problems comparing to
Mm.
that scope.
So that's how you solved it. You bought something else that the cash flow covered. Huh.
Much bigger.
Yeah.
Now the 12,000 become a basically a penny.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're getting close to the end of the show here, and there's always two questions I like to ask at the end, and I'm going to adapt them a little bit because you've done business and real estate. And the first one is, what's the craziest or most uncomfortable situation that you have ever experienced in either a business deal or a real estate deal?
Um, I know I probably give you another answer before this show, but
Mm.
after all these conversation, I think the most challenging one would be you not having enough clarity.
Mm.
Because not having enough clarity will cause you not having enough um, clarity on your vision.
Mm.
And the leader lead with vision.
Mm.
And if you don't have clear enough visions, nobody would follow you.
Mm.
Like, why? Why are people following you when you don't know where you're leading people to?
Yeah.
So that would be probably the mistake or the challenges that I no longer want to have anymore.
Hmm.
Um, and honestly speaking, in the later phase of my business journey, I always come from this. Like, what is the problem I'm trying to solve, and how big of the impact it's going to make to the world?
Mm.
If I can make such a big impact, then the remain question, doubts, lack of clarities will all be addressed itself.
Mm.
And there will be so many talented people want to dive in, jump in, help you, support you, provide you resources, and all that.
So is that how you get that clarity is figuring the problem you want to solve, or is there like another step you take that also helps you get to that point of the clarity?
I would say it's probably the second or the latter one.
Mm.
I always come up with something that um, that make me questions. What if the world operate this way? It would be
Mm.
so much better.
Mm.
And then I take a step back and realize, oh, for us to do it this way, what need to happen?
Mm.
And a lot of time they actually break down into a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
And fortunately, from my engineering background, I get to learn about the tool that we can use. For example, the causal map, the the decision tree, and all that. It
Mhm.
basically helped me break down a much bigger problem into smaller chunk of problem,
Mhm.
into identifying what is the problem I want to solve, what is the problem that's most valuable and most impactful to solve.
Mm. Yeah, I like that. So my second question at the end of the show is, if you could go back in time and you can apply it to real estate or business again, when you were looking for that first deal, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself?
Going sooner. Take your first step sooner. Don't wait. Time
Mm.
is the only thing that you cannot get more. And I hope that change.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, to the end of the day, you can always make more money, or the
Mm.
government can print more money, but the time you have that you can create impact to the world is defined, likely limited until it change.
Yeah. So, Benjamin, if people want to connect with you after the show, or maybe they're interested in joining, I know you said you do an hour a week of sharing some of the lessons that people can learn if they're thinking about getting into business acquisition. How can they go about reaching you or finding your content online?
I can be found on Instagram and also YouTube at Benjamin Huang, BenjaminHuang 14, like 1 4, Benjamin Huang 14. All my contents are up there. And if you're interested to join my weekly all thing creative business acquisitions conversation, be free to just DM me QA, and you will get the link there that you can sign up and join us. It's every Tuesday, I think it's 3 p.m. Eastern time.
Cool. Well, awesome, Benjamin. Thanks for being on the show. This is great.
Mike, I appreciate you. Thank you for having me.